tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, welcome to the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast with yours truly, the old salty dog, John Martin. I'm in Treasure Island, Florida. I'm going fishing shortly after the show, and our captain, Mr. Ted Yoho, is in none other than Minnesota, his home state.
Minnesota.
Say hello to the Wackadoodles, not your family up there, but the Wackadoodles, Tim Waltz and Eli and Omar for me.
Yeah, you bet you, don't you know? Hey, we'll go out and get a pop later. No, it's good to be up here. I just had such fond memories when I was a youngster. Of course, I left halfway through the third grade for 6 months and then moved down permanently halfway through the fourth grade. And it's not the Minnesota I remember. It's not the bastion of just good old America, very conservative. It's changed, and unfortunately, for the better. Like I said, the liberal bastion.
What's crazy,
today's
Ted,
politics.
to me, it's become kind of symbolic of all the wackadoodle stuff that's happening in the country because, it used to literally be the salt of the earth there. I mean, you're talking about this hardworking farming people, that kind of thing, foundation. And now, and I'm not saying everybody, obviously, I think you told me earlier that your brother turned 80 up there. I'm sure they're like looking around like what happened to our state, but it has become kind of the epicenter of the crazy leftist politics.
It has, and we pulled into a hotel here, and I didn't think it was for real, but the Minnesota state flag is the same colors as the Somali flag, and they did do that for real. I was thinking it was just irony or news media, but it's the two color kind of an aqua blue and blue.
Well, there's two states, both northern states in different parts of the north that basically, the same situation. Minnesota, like I say, used to be kind of the epicenter of conservative family values, hardcore, just American patriots, hardworking people. And so did Maine. Maine used to be the same.
Oh,
way.
yeah.
But now both of them are as crazy as any state we have in the nation.
Yeah, and I want to bring that up as you move through the stories here with our opener, and just talk about how the movement in America has changed from the American principles: God, country, and family, traditional family values, pride in the country. So I'm going to turn it back over to you and let you keep us on track here.
I want to talk a little bit about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Killing me, John. You're killing me.
Enough here that I know, Ted, you don't necessarily want to. But I think what's happening with her is kind of symbolic of what's happening in general in the country. And if people think this lady could not one day be contender for president of the United States, they are not reading the tea leaves. Ocasio-Cortez, they just had a poll. I know it's way out, 2 years is a long time, but she is leading now in the polls in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire traditionally has been the first state, but she's up over everybody there, and Kamala and Gavin Newsom are like almost non-existent, and in second place is Pete Buttigieg. But if you think that Ocasio-Cortez couldn't be the nominee in 2028 and couldn't possibly win, I hate to tell you, but you might be wrong.
You might. And, I want to go back to Grand Platinum, look at the ones that won in Chevalier in New Jersey, Al Said in Michigan, and you look at all the other DSA candidates. These aren't candidates that stood up and said, I want to run for Congress. I want to run for the Senate because I believe in the American values. These were all screened like a Hollywood script by the DSA and those people that picked Graham Plattner. There's a good Wall Street Journal video of them, those people that picked them, that had the organization that actually went out and they went through thousands of people to find somebody like Graham Plattner. They did the same thing with AOC, Chevalier, and these other people that are now the Democrat Socialists of America or the Communists of America. They're not running on passion. They're running because they got picked, and that organization that picked them are using them for useful idiots, basically. And some of them have very good social media, and they're not doing that on their own. They have a group of people pushing that because they're pushing that message to influence the elections, and they've been very effective at it. But it's not the values that America owns. So, yes, she is leading in that poll. It's scary to think that she could even be considered for that. I almost have to say, I hope she does. I hope she does. And Pete Buttigieg, that one of them is president, one's vice president, as far as candidates, not elected.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, we're talking a little bit about Maine too. I don't know if you saw it, but that I saw some excerpts of the debate between I think it's 5 of them that will be selected in the next couple of weeks, to actually one of them to fill Plattner's vacated contest. And you talk about, I mean, the sanest person up there, I don't remember their names, is so far to the left that, I mean, they got this guy up there. They got a guy up there, Ted, you've probably seen it, that literally is not even trying to hide that this is a dude in a dress. You know what I mean? He's rough looking, man. And he literally said, they asked him, what qualified him? How did he decide to run? He said, well, I ran before and he lost by 1 million points. He literally got in the race because 500 Democrats signed a petition card to put him on that ballot. And the guy literally talked about being a woman in the debate and hide the children or whatever. He literally said that as proof that he actually is a woman, that he menstruates out of his rectum. He said that in the debate.
I don't think he's had a proper anatomy course.
I don't know how you would ask a follow-up question to that. But what gets me is this guy is actually in the race, and he might not be the craziest of all of them. One of those 5 is going to be the Democratic nominee and has a legitimate chance to win.
Menstruates through his rectum. I think they call those.
Now, he didn't quite say it that way, but
I think those are hemorrhoids. You need some Preparation H or some other cream. Jeez.
Maybe that's why, you're in Minnesota. Maybe that's why Tampon Tim wants to put tampons in the boys' restroom, because they're doing what this guy's doing.
Well, again, it shows you the decay of American politics and the education of what our country is. If people are taught the proper things as they grow up and their parents teach them the proper things, God, country, family, what's right, what's wrong, what's truth, what's false, we wouldn't have this stuff. But this DEI, the Me Too movement, all these things, I don't want to say the Me Too movement because there was a lot of abuse in that towards women. But these people that are espousing this kind of just toxic education, that a boy can be a woman and a woman can be a man, it goes against nature. When you mess with Mother Nature, it's just wrong. And I think there's enough sane people, even in those states, in Minnesota and Maine, that are going to say, we're not going to do this. It would be a disaster. Can you see either one of those, Buttigieg or AOC or Newsom or whoever's, Kamala Harris, throw your liberal Democrat in there. Can you see them on the world stage dealing with China, dealing with Putin, Kim Jong-un? You guys we don't want that. And they're going to go head in head with these people. Pete Buttigieg, what's he going to show up with his man breasts and offer to feed some children over there? I don't know. This is nonsense. And it's almost like a Twilight Zone film series from the old days. And for people that don't know the Twilight Zone, look up, what is it, Rod Steiger,
Sterling.
Rod Sterling in the Twilight Zone. Um, because it really is what I feel like we're living in on the Democrats. And I know you've got some more stuff to go into, so I'll be quiet so you can do that.
I want to make it clear to people, I'm not saying that AOC would be a good president and it would be anywhere near. I'm saying she could get elected. That's what troubles me.
Right.
See, she's a lot smarter than some of these others that are up there. And yes, there's like a pushback, for instance, a little bit from some Democrats now because they're worried, not because they don't want to go that direction. They're just worried about the general election. So they're pushing back on some of these people a little bit, but you don't see any pushback against AOC. And she deserves some pushback, but you don't see much from the establishment of the Democrats because they're scared of her.
Well, go back to who owns and controls the major media outlets. It's the billionaires, the liberal Democrats, the progressives, China, all these other countries have such a major influence on the media that they don't dare go after her. And the American people, on the most part, the ones that I talk to, of course, I'm in a very friendly populist. They just think she's bat something crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But she's really smart. Like, for instance, just
smart
as she's been asked multiple times about whether she would run for president, but when this poll came out, she was stopped on the Capitol steps a couple of days ago. I couldn't really find a good, clean version of it to play. But her response was, I have to say, politically speaking, was terrific. She basically said that, I'm honored that people would think about me. He said, that if the time comes, I don't think about polls. I think about what's best for the country, what people need. And she said, right now, I think the best thing for me to focus on is for the Democrats to win the midterms. That was a terrific answer, really. I mean, that's not one
she's
that
gotten very good
or people could give, but she can. That's what scares me. Not that she would make a good president, but that she could win.
Yeah. Well, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with something else.
With the menstruation of a man, right?
I don't even want to think about that. That's a thing I can't erase from my mind.
Take that out.
Take that out, John. I got to shake my head, get rid of that. Yeah, no, but again, it's a populist movement. And if you poll America, all of America, would they want somebody like that, or Pete Buttigieg, or a Kamala Harris? That agenda coming into America, I just don't think Americans will do that. I mean, we saw that overwhelmingly with Trump, and he was a flawed candidate in so many areas, but yet he loved this country and he loves the principles of it. And now we've just got to maintain until we get the majority, and then the presidential election. And there'll be other people that'll rise on the right side that'll raise up and challenge that. And the American will have to make a choice. Do you want to fix the country and go back to some type of normalcy and gain that respect around the world? And I'm telling you, those two, anybody on that ticket will not make America stronger. They really won't.
Well, one of the things I think the poll actually did show is that even though Kamala's got obviously a lot of name recognition, I don't see her really being much of a threat. I could be wrong there. And Gavin Newsom has a big hill to climb. He's kind of positioned himself where, conservatives aren't going to support him. Mainstream Democrats are wondering whether he could be elected. And the DSA, they don't think he really believes what he's saying, and they only want true to believers. So I think Gavin Newsom trying to do with his hands, do all things to all people, has basically destroyed his candidacy, in my opinion.
Well, all you have to do is look at the state of California. Look at the actual. What kind of state is it in right now? I mean, do you want that for America? Look at the homelessness. Look at the people on the streets. Look at they can't even finish that rail line that they've put in. I forget like $22 billion or some ungodly number, and they don't even have a mile that done. And look at their gas prices. Look at the tax on the wealthy people. Look at that. Do you want that for America? I don't think the American people want that. And AOC on the other side is just going to espouse, and like you said, she's very coy. She's very slick at what she's doing. But she hasn't been that way, but she's growing into that. And it's just all BS is what she's espousing that's going to be good for America. Listen to what she has said. Look at what she says about Brooklyn. She wants to legalize the brothel, the street workers, the women sex traffickers that are really human traffickers. They're basically enslaved into that business, and she wants to legalize that. She runs out Amazon that would have brought in tens of thousands of jobs, 10 to 20,000 jobs. And she runs that out because of her mouth. She's got such a big mouth, and the media doesn't call her out. So you got to wonder, why are they not calling her out? Because there's a movement behind her that wants her in power to be the spokesman. And it's really that movement to destroy America and tear it down. And they use people like her, and they're gonna get her in office, and then they'll consume her like they do everybody else. And it's just America. I have faith in America. I have faith in our system, and what these people are doing is not American. I mean, go ahead. You've got other things to play on
Yeah,
her.
I want to ask you a quick question,
Yeah.
though, not related to AOC directly, because one of the things not directed at her, but the DNC is pursuing right now, kind of quietly, to kind of prepare for DSA candidates, is they're really seriously talking about moving the first primary to South Carolina, because they think,
Mhm.
And I'll just say it like it is. It's got a strong black population, Democrats there. Obviously, they can propel Biden forward, and they think that maybe that would be a stopgap on some of these DSA candidates. So that's interesting to see what happens. But it reminded me of something that just happened this week. Lindsey Graham passed. We know that. We talked about that.
Mhm.
And his sister was appointed. His sister was appointed
Right.
to fill his seat, but there was an expectation, at least in the media, that she wouldn't run. But now she's come out and said that she's going to run. She literally announced it on Sean Hannity's podcast. What are your thoughts about that? Because there's a lot, I'm not saying anything negative about her, but there are other people that were kind of waiting in line to potentially, and I'm not saying they deserve it, but it's just interesting that now she's going to run. That really clouds that issue on the Republican side, I think.
It really does. And so you got to ask, why is she running? What's her underlying motivation? Is she passionate about this country, or does she think it's a rite of passage because Lindsay held that seat so long? Does she really want to serve this nation in the way it needs to be served? And you said that there's a lot of people waiting in line. I learned a long time ago in life, before I ran for Congress, you don't wait in line for leadership. You create leadership, and you get up and you do it because you believe in what you're saying, and you put action behind that. And that's, so many times when I ran, people say, well, you're butting in front of these other people that have been waiting in line. And I'm like, you don't wait for leadership. You take leadership. You don't wait for it. You create it, you earn it. And for her to say that, if it's for the right reasons, I'm all for her, because I don't think anybody owns that seat. It's the people of South Carolina are going to vote for that. And for somebody to have the arrogance, think, well, it's my turn. Those are the people I don't want in there, because they're going to be career politicians. And it's the career politicians that have led us to where we're at, or they have failed to prevent it. We want people that are going to fight for this nation and lay their life on the line for this nation, just like our veterans do, and first responders. And I think that'll come out. And you look at, I don't want to give AOC any more airtime, because I don't think she deserves that. I think she's just an empty suit. Look at her. We played some reels a couple months ago where she's talking in the South, trying to rally the South against the repressive, racist Northern white people. If you remember that, she had that glass shield around her. And then I think it was Monday, you played the news clip of her where she's trying to talk with a Southern drawl.
Yeah.
It doesn't work to have a Brooklyn accent and a Southern drawl. I mean, it just comes across as phony, but she is trying hard. And I agree with you. I think she probably will be the nominee. And, I hope that shower falls down on her. I hope it collapses around her, and not so much her, but that DSA movement, because these people are just not what America is.
Well, I want to mention something about DSA, but I want to give we had several videos, but I'll spare you. We'll only play one. Because I think it kind of sums up why she doesn't need to be president. And that is the third one on our list, Mr. Producer, that says defending Taiwan. So if you can get that one set up, we'll play that one. But with DSA, see, I agree with you, what you said about leadership is not waiting your turn, it's going forward. And you did exactly that, and I applaud you for it. I'm just saying that there are people, it's going to be disruptive politically to South Carolina, which might be a good thing. But DSA people, you got to give them credit on one level because they're not waiting their turn for sure.
Well,
They're not.
that's exactly right. I mean, you brought out a very good point on that. They're not waiting, because again, you can't wait to your turn to be a leader. If you're a leader, lead.
Yeah, Mandami, as bad as he is, and he's doing a terrible job, and I think it's going to be a disaster for New York. He has a lot of the qualities that you need. It shows you why people can be leaders and lead people in a terrible direction because he is charismatic and he does
Sure.
sound good, even if you don't like what he's saying. And I can see how young people, especially, could be triggered by that, but that makes them more dangerous, not less.
It really does. I mean, we saw that with Hitler. He was a leader. Look what he led. You look at Mao Zedong. He was a leader. He got to be a leader by killing everybody around him, like Kim Jong Un. They got a family dynasty in North Korea. But Mao Zedong led people, and he led 80 million people to their deaths. Same with Stalin and Lenin. They led all these people to their death. Doesn't mean that they are a good leader. They just found a culpable crowd that would follow them into disasters, and we've seen this
Well,
throughout history too. There's good leaders and bad leaders, and just because you can get a lot of people at a rally doesn't make you a good leader.
yeah, well, really it comes back to a certain type of physics about, a vacuum, that something's going to fill that vacuum.
Oh,
So
it
one of the
will.
reasons why you have terrible leaders that lead people astray, like you gave great examples there, is because there aren't any good positive leaders up there. They're waiting back.
You're
And
absolutely
so
right.
that vacuum is filled by tyrants quite often. And that's what I think is the biggest danger for our country, quite frankly, Ted, is that if we have a vacuum of real solid leadership like founded this country, something is going to fill that vacuum and we might not like what it is.
You're absolutely right. And I encourage people to watch Young Washington. We're not getting paid to promote this, but I think it goes to the very heart of what this country was founded on. And then I forget the other one. It'll come to me.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but
It
before
was
we
called An Awakening, The Awakening.
right.
And
And that's one of the reasons why we do this show is trying to get people to wake up, and that type of
educate,
thing.
motivate, and activate.
Inspire some people. But we're going to play this video that I set up. It really doesn't need a whole lot of setup. If you want to know why AOC cannot be president, I'm not saying she won't be, but we shouldn't let her. This was a few months ago at a big annual summit or semi-annual
Worldwide. Is that
worldwide summit, and they had leaders from, I think JD Vance was there, a couple of other people on the Republican side. But this was AOC. Now, she knew where she was going. I want you to know that she was supposed to be prepared for this, and she was asked about a critical question about the United States defending Taiwan from Chinese invasion. And watch what she said, and we'll come back, and then we'll go to a break. Check it out.
Should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
I tell you what, Kamala's got nothing on that gal for a word salad. I mean, she sat there, Ted, talking about one of the most important issues that could literally start World War III, and she's going, "Oh well, it's this." I mean, what a bag of gibberish.
He couldn't pick out Taiwan on a map, I would bet. Um, Again, I'm going to go back to that Japanese legislator that said if China moves on Taiwan, that brings Japan into a war with China because they're going to go right after the islands that are 40 miles off the coast of Taiwan that China claims. And then if that happens, that automatically brings us into the war. And so you have World War III. And for her to sit there and just stumble through that, it's like Kamala Harris talking about Russia and Ukraine. And she telling the kids, well, Russia is this big country and Ukraine is just this little tiny country. And, just, I don't know. I mean, again, people like this to get to this level, you wonder how they got there, and it doesn't matter, I guess, really how they got there. They're there and we have to deal with it. And they have to deal with it by educating people that these things will be bad. You had that other clip where she said the world was going to end in 12 years. And
that
I think
was
we're
7
almost
years ago. So we got 5 left, Ted.
Yeah, and it's just
Count.
BS. But the media doesn't call people out like her and say, "Well, explain why you feel that way. Give me the proof that that's going to happen," and just shut them down. So why is that? Why is the media promoting the Kamala Harris's, the Buttigieg? And it's because the deep state. I don't want to say the deep state like up in Washington, but it's that party of big government. They kind of want those kind of conflicts going on so that they can continue to do what they do. And it's just, we need somebody that's going to stand up for America and they're going to lead this country, not just for the next 4 years, but set an agenda for 50 years into the future and get the buy-in of the American people. And it's what Washington or Lincoln said, with public support, there's nothing you can't do, but without it, there's not much you can do. And so if somebody stood up and said, we're going to go this way, this is the vision I see for you. I want the young kid that grew up with nothing to live the American dream. I want, you come over here as a migrant or an immigrant. I want you to live the American dream, but you need to fit into the American system. We're not changing our system to accommodate you. And I see this, this whole thing with all this immigration and, people bringing in Sharia law and want that to be the law of the land. No, it's not going to happen. That's going to lead to a civil war, and we don't want a civil war. And you got to get people to become united as Americans. And I don't need a boogeyman to unite the people. I just need people that say, you know what you're saying makes sense. Let's do that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and our baseline of our show is to educate, activate, and motivate people. I'm sorry, I was thinking of my next line.
You're thinking about where you're going to get your bait. You're thinking, where am I going to get my bait after this?
Yeah. Here's the problem, Ted. The other side, that DSA bunch, they are educated in a bad way, but they're educated, a lot of them.
They're focused.
They're activated, and they're highly motivated. So the only way we're going to stand up against that is to be the same way ourselves in a positive way. And that's what we're trying to do here at this show. So make that call Freddie, become a sponsor of the show, like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Take us to break, Captain.
No, again, I appreciate everybody tuning in and spread this word around, please, because this really is a fight for the saving this country, from what it stood for 250 years. And it is the bastion of freedom. And you can do that by supporting our sponsors. And I want to talk about Archer Automotive and Transmission Repair. They're located at 13750 Southwest Archer Road in the metropolis of Archer, Florida. And you get your service desk directly to schedule an appointment and to get an estimate. It'll be a fair estimate and a good estimate. And their number, it's a new number, 352-495-3500. So we'll see you after the break. Take care.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, John Martin, and the captain of our ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho, coming to you from Minnesota today.
Minnesota. You know what was neat flying in? I have never seen so many squared off plots of land, and they look like maybe a section at a time. A section of 640 acres is a mile square. I mean, they were just, and they look like a checkerboard. They were so well marked out, all green with the grain crop, soybeans, corn, you name it. It's growing, and it is growing in abundance in America. And it made me feel good because that really is the breadbasket of America. And just on food for a minute, this is an aside. I was in Aspen at the Aspen Institute, a think tank, which my brothers laugh at, and they laugh. They said, "And they had you there?" I said, "Yeah." And we were
That's what
talking
good
about.
brothers are for.
Well, this is, yeah, right. They keep you humble. I brought up this dairy that's going in Africa, and it's being uh, the country of Qatar is doing it because when COVID came, they were getting their milk from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They cut them off 100%. And so they don't ever want to be in that situation again, Qatar. So they're flying in over 140,000 head of Holstein cattle, a lot of them coming from the United States, for national security and food security. And that's why we need people that understand these things and that they can lead the nation. You don't need people that don't know where Taiwan is or the importance of Taiwan. And it's just, it all comes down to education. People need to be educated. This is not a game. This is not a do-over. This is something we've got to get right.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know what's happening at this very moment in Iran, but something is for sure, because it seems like they're debating whether or not we're going to go back to full-scale war, whatever the definition of that is. We're literally attacking them on a daily basis. Iran, what's really fascinating to me and scary is, we were told, and I'm not saying we were lied to, but we were told that we had basically decimated, of course, their nuclear stuff earlier, but their ability to fire off all these missiles. And if that's true, they sure rebuilt them in a hurry.
They're getting help from China, Russia, North Korea, not South Korea. And the whole goal is to weaken America and our arsenals. And, you can read the news stories, how it's going to take us years to this and the fight over the spending for the military. Unfortunately, this is all something we got to pay for. We're going to have to do. And this illustrates and really points out the importance of good foreign policy. If you do not have good and strong foreign policy, walk softly, carry a big stick, peace through strength. If you do not have that, everything else falls apart. You look at the oil prices, look at, chip manufacturing for AI. Look who's going to dominate that if we don't win this battle in the AI. It'll be China, and China will set the standards. And they will control societies like they do in so many other countries around the world. And that's what this is about. And this comes down to foreign policy. So we've got to get this right. And for some of the people on the other side, even the Republicans, they don't have a clue about this. And, it pains me when I hear this. And I like Marco. I like him a lot. But, for him not to stand up to the president and say, Mr. President, you should not go into Iran. Again, if they had the information that they said they had, that Iran was real close to having a nuclear weapon, that's one thing I can understand that. But if that's so, finish the job and get us out of there and get back to some normalcy here.
I'm a strong President Trump supporter. I have been since before he ever even ran for president. I've always liked Donald Trump. And people say, well, you don't criticize me enough. Well, he gets criticized a lot without me, but I will criticize him. And I guess I'm going to right now, or at least question it, because I really need your help on this, Ted, because I know you've met the president, you've been around him and spoke at at least one or two of his rallies. I was at one of them where you spoke. But President Trump said yesterday, he said that he is seriously considering, he did this lengthy Axios interview. He said he's seriously considering a much larger military offensive against Iran, though he emphasized in this article that he's not yet made a final decision. What exactly does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Sounds like word salad to me, and I agree with you. He wasn't my first choice or second choice in his first election, but he was the only choice, and I supported him. And I felt like I had a good relationship with him. I didn't bow down and cave in like I saw so many Republicans. I was pathetic, John. I mean, at the White House, I had people bringing members of Congress bringing board games so he could sign them, and they'd have 8 or 9 hats so that he could sign them. And I'm like, these are like guys are like a bunch of kids. Um, so for him to say that, it sends a mixed signal. I haven't decided what to do yet. Well, you need to decide because you got us in here and it's affecting not just our economy, it's driving people away from America as far as allies. I've never seen foreign countries question the strength of America and where we stand. And if we don't have a clear, consistent message that lives beyond him, we'll just become another nation in the world that nobody will care about. And keep in mind, Americans are only 4% of the world's population. And, if it wasn't for the strength that we've exhibited during World War II and since, we would be just like any other nation. But it's those values this nation was founded on. It's the toughness of our military and the people that served in the military, but also the hardworking American people that work to keep this country running. It's not people like on the left, or there's people on the right too, robbing these social programs for personal gain. Those aren't Americans. They're just sorry individuals. And I think we need to get back to, stand for America, put your hand on your heart and when you say the pledge and believe it, and get a tear in your eye when they do the Star Spangled Banner and the jets fly over. So and I'm kind of on a rant here, but Trump needs to come out with a clear, concise thing. And I know part of that is a strategy to keep everybody off guard. But at some point you're going to say, this is what's going to happen. You do this, we'll do this. It's your choice.
Yeah, I understand, and you said it well right there. I understand the idea of not telling you. I mean, sometimes reporters ask questions, and he says, "Well, I'm not telling you that." I agree with that. I agree with that when it comes to a strategy, but I kind of need a help on this because you're not only the captain of the ship, but you're also a doctor in a real sense, not like Jill Biden. And so you're smart. You're a smart. But in this article, he stated that Iran has shown interest in negotiations, but hasn't received enough pain yet to accept U.S. terms. Is the president talking too much, Ted? I mean, what is that? To me, he's talking too much and he's word salading it, really.
Yeah, I mean, when you start talking a lot and you don't act, it does. And he acted. I mean, he acted very strong in the things he did, but then he comes out and does this other stuff. We saw this with Kim Jong Un when he negotiated there. We saw it with Putin, and then we saw it with Xi Jinping, and now we're seeing it here. Damn it, you either mean what you say and you do that, or stop talking. And again, you know where I stand. I don't think we should have been in this war, but I didn't have that information that he and his team had to make the decision to go in Iran. But I would have fought tooth and nail not to go in there unless you had a strategy. And like I said before I go in there, knowing it's going to disrupt the world's oil supply, which is only 20% of the oil, I would have had routes already planned. Maybe shore up Venezuela, get them up to speed, pumping oil, getting it around the world. And then our own infrastructure to where we can pump and sell and send it, and go into California. So, you don't want to do this. We're going to do it on federal lands in California. And because it's a direct route to Asia. So those things should have been worked out ahead of time instead of just, being bravado and a macho, say, well, we're going to blow them up. But again, that goes back to what he knew that you and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when I hear the president talking, and now he pays special dignity to our soldiers. There's no
He
question about it.
does. He
Trump
really
is
does.
very honorable with that. All of that. He just did that
Very
where they.
respectful. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. So what I'm about to say, I'm not knocking him on that. And I think that clearly the soldiers, the majority for sure, respect and support him. But sometimes when he's talking about some of this, I kind of put myself, well, what if it's one thing for the soldiers? They're doing, because I don't believe a soldier ever dies in vain. They get put in situations they shouldn't be in, but they die doing their duty and protecting the guy next to them. That's so they don't die in vain. We put them in that situation. I get emotional thinking about it. But I think about people back home that have a loved one there, a husband or wife, whatever, kids, parents that have children over there. What are they thinking about that message that's kind of coming from the president now about their people being potentially put in harm's way? Maybe I'm off track there, but I think about it and I wonder, what are they garnering from that message?
That's a good question. I think that's something people really need to think about going into this next election, because you're absolutely right. His actions are putting future generations in harm's way, especially this generation that are in the military now. They're going to be in harm's way. But if you get a weak leader in there, whoever is on the Democrat side, I would make this prediction that America will be less safe, and you won't recognize it. 5 to 10 years from now, you won't recognize America, and we'll be less safe. We'll be dictated by somebody else, or a world organization like the UN or the World Economic Forum, and that's really where the left wants to go. It's like Jamie Dimon said, if you don't go woke, you'll go broke. But when their side lost the election and the Republicans came in, he just put that away and said, well, that's not true anymore. But if they get back in power, trust me, that'll come back on steroids. It just, and so for Trump to say, I don't want to say it's not a promise, but to say empty rhetoric without action just weakens us overall and makes us less safe.
Well, Trump warned that if Iran backed the Houthis, that continuing to attack, they're attacking. They hit 2 Saudi Arabia tankers just yesterday or day before. That he would hold Iran directly responsible. My thing is like, duh. I mean, is there anyone that doesn't know that Iran is directly responsible? So to me, that doesn't make sense. But you talk about a leader, Marco Rubio. I want to play a clip from him. He said something pretty interesting. And I've had mixed feelings about Marco from the beginning. I know you know him a lot better. He's been a great Secretary of State.
Yes.
I first got to know him during the Tea Party thing. I think he did a great job as Speaker of the House in the state of Florida. He was too establishment for me in the Senate during that time, but that's just my opinion. I'm willing to give him a second chance, and he's done a great job. But I played this video. He said some interesting things, and we'll come back and talk about it real quick.
I saw Arachi, their foreign minister, who the other day say or something about their policies, an eye for an eye. The president's policy is a head for an eye. I mean, honestly, that's what it's going to be. I mean, they will pay a very heavy price for the things they're doing. They're already paying a very heavy price. You guys don't know it because you don't cover it. You're not in Iran. You're not in the street. They don't have a free media. But they're going to continue to pay a very heavy price. Their industrial base has been decimated. Their defense industrial base has been decimated. They're losing launchers. They're losing radars every single night. They are suffering billions of dollars in damage, and their economy is a disaster. But despite all that, okay, these people who are calling us every day, begging, let's do a deal, they send us messages through other countries, third countries. I mean, they're running out of countries to send. Even I had countries here coming up to me, oh, I just spoke to the Iranians, they want to do a deal. The problem is, every time these people do a deal, they either break it, or after they make it, they want to change the deal. So they're probably not ready to do a deal yet, but they will be soon, because the price they're paying is very high, despite their tough talk and their flowery language and their stupid Lego videos they put out. I've never seen them, but they put these things out on social media. Despite all that bravado, they are suffering tremendously, and they're going to suffer more until they come to their senses. They're not there yet, unfortunately.
Which countries came to you?
Oh, I can't tell you who told me that. I mean, they're not be betraying the confidences. There's some of them that are here, yeah, and every day I get a text or a call or a signal message from a foreign minister. Oh, so-and-so called me. The Iranians want to talk. The Iranians want to talk. But the problem with these guys, and in addition to the fact that they're probably fighting with each other, is they make a deal, they agree to something, and then they decide, oh, let's change it after they made it. Or they agree, or they decide, oh, I know we made a deal, but we're going to violate it. I mean, these people, unfortunately, they aren't ready for a deal. I think they'll be ready soon.
Yeah, well, see, he in that video, this is the one thing that Donald Trump is saying, and I liked what Rubio said, but it also triggered something else in me, Ted, because they're talking about, punishing them enough to make a deal, giving them enough pain to make a deal, making it worth their while to make a deal. I don't know that the Republican Guard can be convinced to do a deal, period. I think that there's a good chunk of them that literally will worship the 70 some virgins or whatever, and they will fight to the death, and they certainly will put you out there to fight to the death. I don't know that you can make a deal with these people.
I don't think you can. You're talking about the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Guard Corps. No, they're a terrorist organization. You cannot deal with those people. I mean, history has shown us. Read The Two Swords of Christ by Abrams, and all the deals they made back then, very few of them did they keep. They said if you lay down your weapons, we'll treat you kindly. And as the Crusaders laid down their weapons, they were gutting them and slaughtering them and pulling their guys. It's terrible. So this has been going on for thousands of years. You think they're going to change now? It's like, again, you heard me say, that's like giving a shark more teeth and think they're not going to bite you as much. You can't trust them, and it's got to be complete surrender, as Japan and Germany did. And without that, it's going to be a disaster for generations to come. And unfortunately, we're in this situation, and it needs to be done. And it'll be horrific, unfortunately, unless they can find somebody that can lead in over there in that country. But I don't see that. And Rubio said, yeah, the Old Testament is eye for an eye, but Trump believes a head for an eye. And that's the right attitude if you want to bring this to an end. And unfortunately, we'll have to see how this plays out. In the meantime, gas prices are going to go up. Things are going to get shorted. And I would be more concerned about telling the American people, you need to prepare for harder times. We're $40 trillion in debt. We're paying over $1 trillion a year in interest. Gas is on the rise, and petroleum products affect everything in the economy. And we're not paying 6.25% for our discretionary income on food products. That's gone up, and it's going to continue to go up because we don't have our own house in order. And that's where we really need to focus. Iran is just a terrible distraction. It's something that had to happen. Maybe again, I'm putting the faith in what our leaders knew with what Iran's immediate intentions were. And let's get it done, boys. Let's do what you got to do to finish this.
I believe you either got to, I hate to say it this way, but kill them or contain them. I don't think you can really negotiate with these people, and I do believe, as I've said many times, that if they had a nuke, I believe they would use it. So I have no problem with that.
I believe more so now. I think that's more so now.
Yeah, absolutely. But what it reminds me of, Ted, is like a hornet's nest. It right there, it looks, and they don't necessarily bother you. They might sting you if you get too close or whatever. But if you tear into that hornet's nest, there is no negotiation. You know what I mean? They come out.
I have learned that the hard way.
And they and they bite you, and you'll either die or wish you were dead. There is no way to negotiate with a burst open hornet's nest. That's what Iran is. That's what they are.
That's what you call survival.
Right.
Those hornets
and that's what they are, Ted. They're like a hornet's nest.
Well, and you look at the Houthis. Iran supporting the Houthis, and I'll guarantee you, Russia's supporting them. China's supporting them, and they're the little proxies that stay out there and fight us. And there is no negotiation. They said they will never stop fighting, because they're fighting for what they believe in. And you gotta respect people that have that kind of commitment. You don't have to like them, but that kind of commitment shows you what we're up with. And that's the way the IRGC and the people controlling Iran look at 10% of their population turned out for the funeral of the Ayatollah. You think you're going to eliminate, 1,000 of the Iranian guard, and the rest of the 90 million people over there aren't going to act up. Um, this is a pivotal point in history.
Well, we're just about out of time, but there's a couple things that happened this week that are centered around the Iran war that I thought were interesting for different reasons, and I'd like to get your opinion on. First of all, Iran came out and literally threatened England because England has let us use some bases for our bombers and stuff like that. And they said that basically now that England is a target and that if they continue to help the United States, they will be hit. Now, England came out and made a very strong statement, basically said, we're prepared to defend England 24 hours, 7 days a week. In other words, they'll do whatever they have to defend it. They're not going to be told what to do. That sounds great until you get punched in the face. So I wonder first if Iran would do it. They'll hit anybody if they want to, if they can. But then what do you think England would actually do if they got hit?
Probably have a tea and crumpets. I think they would have to retaliate. And of course, if that happens, where's the rest of the European Union going to be? And then where's America? Is Trump going to play games like, well, you weren't with us, so should we rush to help you? And again, that weakens our alliances with other countries. This is a time for strong, good leadership, not playing, the deal maker. Just let's get this stuff done. And, let's just hope that Iran doesn't do that. They have nothing to lose. I mean, they see this as a fight for survival, and they're going to strike out at everybody. I mean, they're hitting Saudi Arabia, but they have all these Houthis running around and Hezbollah and all these other proxy groups. And in the background, there's a dragon watching all this in a cave, and their eyes are just glowing. And that's China. China is letting all these people have these fights, break all this stuff, spend all their military down, divide their people, and they'll come out because they're not doing anything to facilitate this to come to an end. They are just sitting in the background and giving enough materials to military weapons and guidance and AI and all that technology to these countries just to keep weakening America and the allies.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the Houthis.
That's really who's going to benefit from all this is China.
Well, you mentioned the Houthis, and the thing about the Houthis, they hate Saudi Arabia. And so I don't know that they're looking for any reason to hit Saudi Arabia, and Iran's taking advantage. I'm not even saying they like Iran, but they absolutely passionately, I don't know the total history, hate Saudi Arabia.
I don't think they like anybody.
Yeah, which brings up another interesting thing that happened this week, and this probably has been moving in this direction for a while, but Trump administration announced a deal on Wednesday with Saudi Arabia, a nuclear deal, not weapons or whatever, but nuclear. But then it sounded like it was 100%. Then Thursday afternoon, they kind of switched and put conditions. Basically, they can't enrich it, and they have to join the Abraham Accords and all that. But the idea...
And Saudi Arabia said, no, you're not going to put limits on us.
But the idea to now interject nuclear stuff into, and there's not weapons, into the middle of the Middle East to Saudi Arabia, that I don't totally trust them either, Ted, to be honest with you. I mean, I think they are allies of convenience to a certain extent. But what are your thoughts about that? Because the whole thing kind of came out, I hate to say it, but Trumponian, kind of convoluted. But there's a lot of important stuff in the middle of that.
There really is. And again, you and I aren't privy to the backroom negotiations or talks that are going on. Like Saudi Arabia says, well, if you help us do this, we'll do this, the quid pro quo. But if Saudi Arabia gets nuclear energy, they have a nuclear program. Eisenhower said, open nuclear programs are for peaceful purposes, but when it becomes covert, it's for weapons. And so can you trust the Saudis? that'll be found out. I would not rather have them as a strong one to depend on. The other, an ally or an alliance, I should say. But if they get a weapon, the UAE gets a weapon, Egypt will get a weapon, Oman, all those rich countries have the money to get the weapons. And so then you have all these nuclear powered countries or nuclear weaponized countries. And is that going to make the world safer? I don't know. I just think we're going in the wrong direction. And, again, it comes back to strong leadership, and America needs to get back on track. And those candidates you mentioned on the left are just going to be useful idiots of the DSA and not do what we need to have done to get this country back on track.
But Ted, every time I go fishing down here, I go out basically 100 miles. We come back in, and I know this sounds kind of silly, but it's kind of true at the same time. I look, and we usually come in, it's dark and early in the morning, and the first sign of civilization you see is the Hooters sign at John's Pass. And I like, well, the Hooters sign's still there. We're probably okay today.
That's America.
I come back like, okay, what if there's like, mushroom clouds everywhere as we're coming back in? But hopefully the Hooters sign will
I tell you what,
when we come back.
You're going out there in the Gulf of America, and Cuba has over 300 drones, unmanned drones, and no telling, you may see them flying over. They may think you're an American drug boat and blow you up.
Yeah,
Be careful.
You never know. Well, I hope we catch them up. Wish your brother happy birthday. I know you said earlier it was his 80th birthday. On behalf of my family and yours, wish him a happy birthday. And, if you get caught up in a ICE raid or something up there, give me a call. I'll come help.
I'll do that. We want to appreciate everybody watching, share our message far and wide. And don't forget to visit our sponsors. Archer Automotive and Transmission Repair, your full service diesel and gas repair facility, 20 years in business, and they offer a wide variety of automotive services from basic maintenance to advanced engine repair, computer diagnostics, and programming. And they're a premier diesel service facility in the Power Stroke, Cummins, and Duramax diagnosis and repair. And they have ASE certified technicians, and they'll get they'll get you back on the road fast and at a fair price. Call for an appointment, 352-495-2485 or 352-495-3500. Take care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Peace out, everybody.